So here we go. Good day. My name is Marijan Jozic, and I'm from company OctonX, which is European affiliate of SAE ITC. ITC is Industry Technology Consortia. Our guest today is Georg List, Vice President of Corporate Strategy at AVL. Georg is also lecturer at Technische Universiteit in Graz, but he is also the most important person of IAMTS TLC, Technical Leadership Committee. In short, we have one very interesting guest today. Coming up.
Hi, Marijan.
Welcome, Georg, to the IAMTS podcast. Good morning. I have not met you in person, but I saw you in various meetings, and my idea was that you would be ideal person to exchange some thoughts in the IAMTS podcast. So thank you very much for accepting the invitation. It is very appreciated. Let's talk about yourself. Why automotive industry? There are so many industries. Why automotive?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, why make it tough on yourself? No, on the one hand, I think it's a very tough industry, yeah. But on the other hand, my roles at AVL also say it. I'm responsible for research and technology. I'm responsible for corporate strategy, and those, there's really only the automotive industry where it's so dynamic and so pushing it forward into advanced areas. If you know a better one, then I'm all ear. Yeah.
Okay. And as I said in the introduction, you are also lecturer at Technische Universiteit Graz. So with your job at AVL and Technische Universiteit Graz, and there is IAMTS activity. What is the secret of your time sharing? How you do that all?
I'm afraid I would not be a good example. I mean, there's many things that I do at AVL, also apart from corporate strategy, with as I said, research and technology, responsible for ADAS and startups. I'm very passionate about startups. We have a startup initiative. And then these things where I sit on two boards of research institutions. And then the technical university is really a very cool thing. A lecture I do every year in a seminar for a week. Yeah, to be honest, I think my wife and my kids would not necessarily say I do that time management so well. But when something grabs me, it's hard to desist.
So there is one side question regarding AVL. When I was researching that about AVL, I found name Hans List, Helmut List, and now you, Georg List. Uh, is there any connection between you?
Yeah, there are connections. So Helmut List is my uncle. It is a
Okay.
family-owned company that was founded by his father, Hans List. It's actually a spin-out of Graz University 70 years ago, or 70 odd years ago, 75 years ago by now. So yes, we have a family tie. Nevertheless, I joined 10 years ago. Time flies. Um, and I'm the only family member by now in the company.
So how you got on board at IMTS?
Yeah, we came to the party, as I would say, pretty early on. Alex Kraus from TÜV Süd and I were discussing things, and I really liked the idea of to tackle something that is so difficult, like CAVs, connected and automated vehicles. and especially the testing of it. And obviously the testing and validation is something that AVL is very deeply involved in. We do lots of testing equipment. We live off validation and making sure things work the way they should work. And in the automotive industry, with the complexity of the products, it's always difficult, but especially so in autonomous vehicles. And so first was the technology challenge I really liked, and I was already deeply involved at AVL. And the second thing was I would call it the power of the global membership. So when SAE and IEEE and Qatar and TÜV Süd and you name it, yeah, NVIDIA and AVL and stuff comes together, I think we have really a very powerful expertise and competence that we pull together. And I could see that we can move things. So I was game pretty early on. Didn't need much convincing. Just needed to find some time to our conversation from before.
Yeah. And then you got the Technical Leadership Committee. You're chairman of Technical Leadership Committee. So it is a kind of brain of technical brain of the whole IAMTS, because you oversee the working groups.
Yeah, no, fortunately not the technical brain. Fortunately, the technical brain really is in the working groups, right? That's good because they create the content, they create the. So what interested me in the technical leadership company again, right? Research and technology, what's new, what's really nifty and challenging out there, and on the other side, the strategic side. Yeah, so where should the roadmaps go? What are the topics that we should really tackle, and where should we focus? And what I try to do is kind of keep a good view on the connections between. We have different teams that we're going to get into, but keep the connections between the teams alive, make sure that there is an exchange, and make sure that we focus on those topics that interest the industry most.
So let's talk about those working groups.
Mm-hmm.
There is one working group one. When I started with IAMTS, it was for me was almost challenge to because everybody was talking working group one, working group two, working group three, but what are those working groups? I was always used to, if there is a working group, to give the beast a name. So working group one is about test scenarios. How is that operating?
Maybe to get to probably. For the overview, I'm fully with you because I've already fell into the same trap of calling them working group 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. But when we started, we recognized that validation of CAVs, connected automated vehicles, really is different from validation in other senses. When you look at it, it's scenario based. Not many things in validation are scenario based. So data for scenarios, really important. Second was, okay, you have to test these puppies somewhere in real, and that happens on proving grounds. Okay. Third is, proving grounds are not going to be enough. We can't drive around for so much. We need simulation. And then we had some other ideas that spawned off there. So when you talked about the first working group test scenarios, it was really that first thing, right? Validation of CAVs is about test scenarios. It's about data. It's about databases. It's about using databases. And it's interestingly, how do I ensure coverage of different regions? How do I ensure coverage of all the test situation or the situations that I need to test again? And so a bunch of people got together and from China and the US and Europe, from research institutions and from also testing institutions got together and said, okay, how do we what should be in these test databases and how should we use them and how they're different between different regions. So that's really what this team one is about.
Okay,
test scenarios.
But I was reading somewhere that if you design test scenario, and if you're talking about autonomous vehicles, then there is so much testing that if you do it physically, then it will take few hundred years to do all the testing.
Yeah.
So that will bring us to working group number 3, virtual
Would bring us
validation
to
and
number
testing.
3.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we will come back to number 2.
Yeah. No, simulation, as you say, pretty much from the outset, it was clear, this is not going to be all in real testing. For reproducibility, not only because it takes too long, but also from reproducibility, from a software-defined vehicle, and CAVs are very deeply software-defined. The development process changes, and you need so model-based development process also requires that you think in simulation, that you have models that you can use, and the simulation. So therefore, simulation is in the development, it is in the validation, it's in the homologation, and we needed to cover these topics. Yeah. Now, there a team got together, and led by one of my colleagues from AVL. But also with NVIDIA, for example, really companies that are very interested in the simulation part. And they didn't invent the new simulations. They didn't think about, what is the best simulation. Actually, they did something very smart. Yeah, they started to look at how to validate a simulation process. Because if you have a simulation process, you need the right models. Those models need to be reusable. They need to be high fidelity. They need to be accurate. They need to be correlated, etc. Right. So, but also the process needs to work, because if you test today a vehicle, you can drive it around. You can ask TÜV, you can ask Qatar, they can drive it around, and then you know that it is traceable. A simulation process, not that easily traceable. So they focused first on validating actually the simulation process and how to validate the models that you use in it, and make it traceable.
Oh,
And it's already, actually, some of the recommendations are already in the UNECE recommendations.
So in the cyber world, we have test scenarios, virtual testing. So it is covering a lot of software. And then the working group 2 is about database for testbeds. So that is not just having piece of a ground and then drive around. It can be also complicated. It have to incorporate all kind of things, and it is not just driving around, but you need measurements, you need all those things. So I can imagine that there is quite a challenge for owners of test beds to cover everything what is possible to test.
Yeah.
And I believe that it is very good thing to have a testbed database to cover it globally, that you can know where to test which parts. Can you
Correct.
tell a little bit more about that? What are the challenges of having so many testbeds in a database, and why they don't do, I mean, individual every testbed, why they don't do everything?
Yeah.
They are specialized.
So also this was one of the initial ideas, or where people said, it's a pretty big challenge. We will have test beds, or some others call it proving grounds. Yeah, we will have test beds out there where we need to test the real vehicles with their real software, with their real sensors, and you have UFOs driving around, and you have to make sure that the vehicle works and the software works, and that we actually do provide the safety at the end of the day that an ADAS system promises. Yeah. Now, two issues with that. One is, as you said, right? Actually, there are many. Not everybody can do everything. So if you look at the last 3 or 4 years, actually a lot of proving grounds popped up, a lot of them. Yeah. And so potential users of test beds. If today I say I have a test campaign, I need to test my vehicle to certain types of traffic in a city or on a highway. I need to probably test it against regulations in Europe, or I need to test it against NCAP, or I need to test it against China regulations. What do I do? Yeah. So a test database, first of all, should give you a possibility to say, oh, these are the things I need to test. Where can I find test beds that can do these things? Yeah. And because there are so many out there, this team got together and characterized, the capabilities of these test beds. So not only I can find them, I called it yellow pages, not only yellow pages, but also, hey, yellow pages with what is their offering, what is their what are their capabilities also in terms of, for example, of digital twin or stuff like that. So one thing was find the right proving ground or proving grounds for your test campaign. And then the second one was, okay, if I do this testing, is this proving ground also accurate enough? So in the future, this team that thought about the database will also go into how do we certify these test beds? Because it is important that they correlate, that tests are repeatable, that the capabilities they announce are actually there. So this is something that the team will get into and is also writing a paper about. Now, what you mentioned, why would a test bed, or how does a test bed look at which capabilities to build up? Because there are so many test beds out there, you need to differentiate. And some differentiation is an obvious one is, okay, if I sit in China, I have a China setup and I can simulate Chinese regulations best, and I can have the markings, and I can have the type of traffic. I have a good coverage. But much more nifty, right? Where do I find the right weather conditions? Where do I find the right road conditions? And also, how do I connect the testing to a digital twin that I can work with and simulate upfront? So there's many things that you can differentiate, and the database is not only something for the users. Yeah, so I have a test program to do. Where do I find the proving ground? It's also something for the proving grounds to market themselves, to show they are proving grounds with certain capabilities, and these capabilities you can find using the database.
Oh, this is definitely great feature at IMTS to have a database. And what I also thought is even if proving ground has a lot of capabilities, they can see which capabilities are used at different proving grounds and perhaps extend their own capabilities to match other things, to be more complete.
Yeah,
So it is working in both directions, in direction of user and in direction of
correct.
owner of proving grounds. So that's great, and it looks that it is probably one of the places where users can compare proving grounds. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if there is any other database or any other activity which can help them to find the usable proving ground for their own purpose.
Yeah, no, there's obviously, the proving grounds and test beds, they advertise themselves, right? So
Yeah,
there is
of course.
information out there that you can collect together. It's hard to make that comparable, yeah, and it's also very hard to find a database that works on a global level. That is comparable also on a global level, and that's one of the objectives for this database. It's a living thing, so we'll be working on it and continue to work on it and add proving grounds and add capabilities and add different features also as we go towards certification. Yeah.
Okay, let's move to working group 4, cybersecurity. That is very, very well. Cybersecurity is not only fancy, but it is almost in every industry. Everybody is concerned
Correct.
about cybersecurity. I can
Correct.
imagine that it is in the automotive industry also one of the top priorities to make car
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
secured.
yeah. You're right. So that's also is a good intro, because we thought about cybersecurity for software-defined vehicles. Yeah, cybersecurity is obviously very important. Then you add infrastructure that you need for connected and automated vehicles. The infrastructure is also an entry vector into multiple systems. Yeah, so you have two things that in our domain that make cybersecurity a very high priority. Now, at the same time, as you said, it's all over the place and it's a huge topic, right? Cybersecurity, we're not going to solve cybersecurity within IAMTS. Nevertheless, what we said, cybersecurity, if you think about it, in validation of connected and automated vehicles, which is our domain, yeah, you need to, for example, we said test scenarios before. You need to somehow bring cybersecurity into test scenarios. So there's a link between two working groups. Yeah, I have here testing scenarios, and now I need to do some overlay of testing scenarios with cybersecurity. Yeah, and I need to inject some faults and see, how these things work now. Yeah, then proving grounds, which we were just discussing, right? In proving grounds, they also need to have in their infrastructure something that can allow you to test cybersecurity. So they need to have thought about what can they offer to test cybersecurity in the real world when you drive around on a proving ground. The third one on simulation. How do you simulate cybersecurity in the context of the validation of connected and automated vehicles? Pretty interesting. And and so it's these connecting points that we want to elaborate on cybersecurity, rather than tackling cybersecurity. Yeah, is what does cybersecurity mean to the validation of connected and automated vehicles? That's the focus of this team. And we have a startup, an already quite established startup from Israel leading that activity, with some of my colleagues from AVL also contributing, with, for example, DLR from Germany contributing. So also here, and Chinese, Qatar also has input there. So we look at that topic also from various sides, from various stakeholders, and we look at it from also various regions. I think, Marijan, you were also in that group for a little while, no?
Yeah, I was. I think last 3 or 4 meetings that we had.
Yeah, yeah. So they
Yeah,
have
it
a
was.
paper ready. It's quite cool, and it elaborates on the topic, cybersecurity as concerns connected and automated vehicle validation.
Yeah, I used to work in aviation, and in aviation was cybersecurity also very very I could
Yeah.
say popular subject, very important subject,
Hmm.
and that is the reason also that I invited myself in their meetings, and it was really enjoyable to talk to specialists and to work on the document. That was a really
Hmm.
nice, very nice group, very
Yeah.
very cooperative, and I mean that is the beauty of IMTS as a global company, that you can, as you said, you can, in such working group, you can have different focus points from different areas, and everybody in that group from different area has their own ideas, and then you join forces together and make very very good document.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, one of the key, I think, why a lot of the members of IMTS are there is the exchange with other industry experts, right? I mean, industry experts, if I'm in simulation, I would want to know more about the proving ground, and it's not so easy for me to do that. And here in the working groups, you engage with other types of stakeholders from other regions, and they share with you what their day-to-day topics are, right? And maybe you can even solve some of them together. So we've had some consortia also coming out, on partnerships coming out of that. So that's one of the key things of IMTS. Yeah.
Nice. There is also a study group 5, certification of HAVs over the whole life cycle. I
Yeah.
remember that was established, that started in Munich at that what was our AII conference. There was a final meeting, and then it was decided to organize a study group.
Hmm.
That, that is quite
Yeah,
interesting area.
it's
Life
cool.
cycle.
Yeah. And we were obviously we were a lot thinking about the initial validation and homologation, but then immediately afterwards you come to, okay, so once what happens once these things are on the road, no? And if you have tackled the homologation in the beginning, it doesn't mean at all that you've tackled this regular check. Is a vehicle that has been out there still capable of doing what it should be doing in terms of safety and autonomous driving? We all know that there is degradation of sensors. We all know that, if I change a windscreen, what happens to the camera and calibration. We all know that if there is snow and sensors get uh, dirty, we need to think about what that means. So, and industry has done something very interesting, with OTA, with over-the-air updates. The car has become a very, yeah, adaptive, I would say, adaptive system. Now, today we drive our car once a year, maybe once every 2 years to a garage and let it test. Yeah. If I do an OTA every 2 months, what does that mean? Driving every year to a garage, right? So I think we need to have different types of instruments there to test, to do the regular checkups if systems still work. So there is the technology challenge of ADAS. There is this regularity of what do I do and how can I do that from more or less the outside on a particular vehicle to say, is it still qualified to do its job? And then I need to think about, on a life cycle term, if somebody buys a car from another one, what kind of ADAS system does he get? Yeah, and does it still work? So quite nifty problems, and this is also a cooperation between IAMTS and CETA, which is one of the organizations for these regular inspections. Really focused on these and brings together a lot of the organizations that do these regular inspections. Now, you called it the study group. Actually, we always start out with a study group before we make it a working group. But this study group has been so productive. They also already have a paper ready on this
Oh, that's
topic. Yeah.
so they will shortly they will change to working group.
In my mind, they already are working group, but we need to do some formal proceedings and raise our hands and do the kind of thing you do in a consortium. But yes, they've come together pretty quickly and been productive already.
Okay. So we were talking about AVL, we were talking about you, we were talking about working groups and IMTS. There is something what I introduced in that first podcast. Joachim was guest, my guest, and we decided to ask question for a guest of next podcast. So Joachim have asked question, have formulated question for you. So he asked in last podcast, what is the most important goal of TLC?
Haha. It's always for Joachim to ask a difficult question. Now, essentially, the most important one is we want to create content. We have such a powerful membership with so much expertise. We want to create content that we can share so that maybe we can influence the way things are standardized and the way that the best practices out there that are used. So I think that is for me the main purpose. Now, that obviously means that we have to motivate our people, our members, and our teams to create that content and help them, and do all the procedural things that help them to get content out into the market. There's one more aspect that we've done a little of, is also cooperations with other institutions, or consortia like IAMTS. So to work together with ASAM, to work together with the Autonomous, to work together with CETA, as I mentioned before. Those are also things that I obviously, with my colleagues from the Technical Leadership Committee, try to help with, that we structure these cooperations from a content point of view.
Great. We are approaching end of the podcast, so there is one task for you. Can you formulate question for a next guest for the podcast? And I have in my mind that the next guest will be Alex Kruis from TÜV Süd. So,
Okay.
Is there anything that you would like ask Alex, and please make it complicated and difficult for him?
All right. Alex. German Autobahns, much too easy. German Autobahns, much too easy. No, for him, we'll do. Alex is a. First of all, I don't know if you play this back to him, but I'll say, "Hi, Alex." Now it's up to you. You get the hard question. No. So he's a passionate cyclist. He cycles all over the place.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, with huge tours all over in Austria and Germany, and he's really quite accomplished in that. So I would say, Alex, what do we do about VRUs, about vulnerable road users like cyclists, like pedestrians in IAMTS?
Oh, that is a fair question. That's nice. Yeah. Because all those cyclists, they should be protected. They're very fast nowadays, and especially there are a lot of electric bikes around.
Correct.
They're driving very fast, so there is need of some protection. That is something. Well, that's a good question for Alex. He will really have to think about that. Yeah, that is great. Yeah.
No, and I think also the big impact, right, of autonomous systems, safety impact. We've the passive safety we've driven in automotive industry to quite a high level. So it is people are protected once they sit in the car, unless of course there's still bad accidents happening, but I think ADAS systems will have a huge impact, and this is where the biggest death toll is today around these vulnerable road users. And it's motorcyclists, it's cyclists, it's pedestrians, it's multiple, people who can't protect themselves. So I think it is a big task for ADAS systems to bring that benefit to society.
Yeah. Very good question. Excellent. So, Georg, thank you very much for spending your time with me in IAMTS podcast number 2. It is very well appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marijan, for asking me good questions, but also now we got another step closer to knowing each other well.
Yeah, great. Also, to our listeners, goodbye, and until the next podcast.